haven't done this in so long. Hey guys, what's up? Today I am going to give you guys a little movie review of movies that I watched from 2020. My memory is going to be a little bit foggy on these because it's been a year since I've watched some of these movies. As I was writing stuff down, I was like, do I even remember what's going on? The answer is no. I just want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. So we're gonna start out with some scary movies because for some reason at the beginning of quarantine, like, that was all I did was watch some scary movies, which is weird because I'm not a scary movie person, but the people that I was quarantining with at the time were into scary movies, and so I was like, I mean, sure, like, might as well get a little cultured. I'm not gonna mention all the movies that I watched in 2020 either, just more of the noteworthy ones that I enjoyed or thought I should talk about or mention. What's gonna happen is I'm going to give you my rating of the movie on a scale of 1 to 10, and then I'll like try and tell you a little bit about the movie without giving too much away, because if you want to watch it, I don't want to give it away. And then I'll give you a little opinion on it. So here we go. So the first movie I wanted to talk about was Pet Sematary. I gave it a 7 out of 10. It wasn't the best movie I've ever seen, but it also wasn't bad. It was about average for me. So that's kind of where a 6 or 7, I guess, kind of lies on my scale, if that helps you give any frame of reference. It looks like an 80s movie, and that's because it was made in like 89, I think. And I wouldn't say it's even that scary of a movie, which is why like my rating was a little down for it. But I was tense and kind of confused because, you know, like scary movies, how they like lead you on throughout the whole thing and not really tell you what's going on. You kind of have to figure it out. And so it did have that going for it. Essentially what happens is a family moves to a new town and there's a pet cemetery like way back on the property, or I don't know if it's someone else's property or theirs, but whatever. And there's a creepy neighbor and he introduces them to the pet cemetery and spooky shit happens in the pet cemetery. That's about all I can give you. It was kind of a cool concept. I never really thought about that. Like having a pet cemetery, just a place to bury your pets, was a little, the fact that there was multiple pets being buried there, I think, is what bothered me, so. Anyway, the next movie is It. I have never watched it and didn't really know what it was about other than like there's a clown. I mean, but essentially what it's about is there's kids that go missing in like this town, and then a different group of kids are like, we should figure out what's going on with that shit. So they like band together and try and defeat this spooky clown dude. It also takes place in the 1980s, so the 1980s must be just a spooky time frame. But I gave this movie an 8 out of 10. It was better, I think, in my opinion, than Pet Sematary. It was kind of funny. I love Finn Wolfhard. That also made it go up. I was on edge for most of the movie. It's also just about a clown, so it's like kind of lighthearted, but also like, ew. Sorry, I had to get my coffee for a second. Oh, that slaps. Cheers. The next movie is called The Woman in Black. I gave this an 8.5 out of 10. I was kind of surprised about this movie. I'd never heard of it before. It stars Daniel Radcliffe, so if you want to see him in a role other than Harry Potter, here's a movie. It's about a lawyer who travels to a random like tiny town and has to go through a dead lady's papers because he was like, or she was one of his clients, but she passed away, and so he's like, oh shit, I need those papers. He has to go into a creepy house and her ghost is in the house, so some spooky shit happens in the house and her property. Gave it an 8.5 out of 10. It was, like I said, one of the favorite scary films that I'd watched during this time in early quarantine, you know, pandemic part 1. I love the cinematography in this movie, and the sets in this movie I think were really good. And plus the story was interesting. It wasn't something that, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a typical scary movie storyline, but with a little bit of spice. And for this story, it does a good job of leading the audience on, not giving away too much information, so you kind of feel a little smart picking up the pieces and stuff. It's good. I recommend, if you're into scary movies, that is. One of the last scary movies that I'm going to talk about is called Shudder. I gave this a 6.5 out of 10. It was my least favorite scary movie that I had watched. It wasn't terrible, it just also wasn't great. It definitely is more of like a thriller vibe, and I wasn't spooked a whole lot. I was just kind of like, what's going on? I do think that has an interesting story concept, which is a young newlywed couple ends up finding ghosts or some weird stuff in the background of their photos they had taken, like I think it was on their honeymoon, and they had taken these photos after they had this like really weird freak accident, like car accident, and some spooky shit happened within that accident. So then they like try to find out what these images, what the things in their photographs mean, and then they just kind of end up going through some scary stuff. I thought it was interesting, the concept of like having, like with the photographs and stuff. I'd never really heard of that personally. After I'd watched that movie, I started to see more and more. It was like on like social media and stuff of people talking about it, weird happenings in the back of their photos and stuff, and I was like, excuse me as I look down too. I wrote stuff out. I would not be able to remember 100% what I rated it and stuff, so just mind your own. Moving on from spooky movies, we have Trolls World Tour. I gave this a 4 out of 10. It was not a good movie. I do not recommend watching it, which is a shame because honestly, I love Disney movies and just like kids movies or whatever you want. Like, I like them, okay? I watched Trolls World Tour. Why is that so hard to say? What? I watched Trolls World Tour and it just wasn't hitting the same as the first movie. It just wasn't. The trailer gave me more serotonin than the actual movie did, so. And Poppy, Princess Poppy, was annoying the entire movie. I don't know what it was. I mean, maybe if I watched it again, I would think differently, but I remember at the time I'd watched this, I was like, this is kind of rash. I like the idea of the different genres of music and like their different realms and stuff. I thought that was cool. I thought the story was very basic, and because the story is about the queen of rock music and she wants to like gain control over all like music genre realms and stuff. And then Princess Poppy is supposed to try and save the world. And I'm just like, okay, really? So yeah, 4 out of 10, do not recommend. Moving on. The next movie is called The Half of It. I gave this an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was really good. I love the story of this movie. I think it has themes of friendship, hardship, and relationship. I'm a poet. It's one of the few movies that I've watched that emphasizes what life is like in any way, shape, or form for Chinese Americans in America, especially like modern day. It's not something that you see very often, and so it was refreshing to be able to see it from that perspective, but also not have it just be about that and just have it be a story. I liked that. This story is about a girl named Ellie who is hired by a jock at her school to win over his crush. She makes money like writing essays and stuff for other people, and he's like, hey, I'll pay you, and I think it's like a love letter that he wants her to write or something along those lines. And at first she's like, but she gets into it and they become unlikely friends, and later on in the movie Ellie catches feelings for his crush as well. So it's very good. I really liked it. It made me feel happy and warm and fuzzy inside, and it just, like I said, the story was really good. You should watch it. It's on Netflix, I think, or it was. This movie is called Black is King. Guys, I gave this a 9 out of 10. It was so good. It's a visual album made by Beyonce, and it's inspired by The Lion King, which, like I said, I am a Disney bitch. I love Disney movies. And drawing the parallels to The Lion King and from her visual album was like fun, but also like she popped off. This entire movie was just so good. It's a literal work of art. Like, I've never watched a visual album before, and I don't even know if anything else could compare to this one because it was just so good. It left me feeling inspired and like strong and empowered, and I mean, as Beyonce does. And it was so good. I love the songs in it and the costumes and the colors and just the culture, everything. It was so good. To round this movie review out, I wanted to give you guys a couple movies that I watched in 2021 so far. One of them is Malcolm and Marie. I just watched this a few days ago with my roommates. I gave this a 9 out of 10. I have not really watched many things like this, if at all. It's about a director and his girlfriend, and they like have a bunch of arguments throughout the night, and it's just very tension filled on the night of his like first movie premiere that he directed and stuff. And it's so good. I love the black and white filter that they use on this movie. I also really like the fact that it takes place in one setting and there's literally just 2 characters in the entire thing, and I love that. I think it makes you really focus on the story at hand and the acting rather than like all these other bits and pieces. It definitely makes it feel more intimate, and I think the acting itself was very real and raw. And then the last movie I'm going to talk about is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I gave this a 10 out of 10. This movie was so good. It has kind of similar vibes to Malcolm and Marie actually for me, in terms of it takes place in like limited settings and it makes you really focus on the story itself and the acting and just what's going on rather than like, you know, moving scenes all the time and trying to keep up with a lot of different storylines. So I think this movie really sits with you very well. The cinematography in this movie is gorgeous. I love like the aesthetic, and lack of a better term, of this movie. The acting of just everyone is so good. And this movie's about how tensions rise between the mother of blues, Ma Rainey, and her horn player from her band. She literally won't let him or anyone else control her music and her ambitions, and it's also very empowering. And it also is really cool that it's based on, you know, Ma Rainey, who I'd never heard of before watching this movie. So I recommend, definitely should watch it. I think it's probably in my top 10 favorite movies, to be honest. And that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys liked watching this. Thank you so much for watching. If you did like it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I would love it if you can share this video with your friends, family, lovers, soulmates, whatever. I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm sorry it took me so long to get around to recording this, but school has kind of gotten in my way lately, but I will still try and make videos for you guys as often as possible. Thanks for watching. Love you. Bye. Bruh. So we should sit down like this more often, huh? Do you guys even like sit down videos anymore? Comment down below what type of videos you actually enjoy watching. I literally watch so many different types of videos on YouTube, it's not even funny. I'm willing to try out different content for you guys because that's all this channel is. Just experimentation, baby. This coffee kind of slapped. The way I'm recording this video instead of doing any schoolwork right now, I kind of straightened it today, but not really. I did a terrible job. It's just don't perceive me. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. And that's on God.